doing? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Vincent. I've translated the Yoga Sutras and the Dhammapada. This is the Dhammapada study. This is going to be an ongoing study. So what is the Dhammapada? The Dhammapada is a collection of Buddha's sayings in verse form and is one of the most widely read Buddhist scriptures. Dhamma, also spoken as Dharma, is defined as universal law, eternal law, and virtue. Pada has multiple meanings, but in this context means a collection of lines or sutras. The eternal truth revealed to us by Buddha is present in this text. It consists of 423 stanzas arranged in 26 chapters. According to the Theravada Buddhist tradition, each verse in the Dhammapada was originally spoken by the Buddha in response to a particular event. The translations have illustrated for deeper understanding and insight. This translation accentuates the art and gives multiple translations for each verse. So it's something that's very important when I'm doing my studies of the Holy Text, and when you're going to study the Holy Text, you have to study the Bible, the Dhammapada, the Yoga Sutras are definitely three of your main texts. And it can take an entire lifetime just to get one text. It took me 10 months to translate the Yoga Sutras, and there's only 220 sentences in the book. And it took me 18 months to finish my translation of the Dhammapada. Both of these translations are on sale. So it took 18 months of studying this text before I got it. And you can study the Bible for an entire lifetime and still not fully understand it. So studying the text together definitely helps. But it's important to understand that this is it. The Buddha spoke these lines. Like when you're studying the teachings of Jesus, when you're studying the teachings of Buddha, you really want to know, well, what exactly did they say? So all of these lines were actually spoken by the Buddha. So I give multiple translations in my translations. That's one of the things that makes my translations different. So what makes my translations different is I'm coming in from a New York American background and from a Christian Catholic background, studying these Eastern religions, but I actually lived with the Buddhist monks, meditated with the Buddhist monks, so I've been practicing these things for about 14 or 16 years. My translations have their comparative reasoning translations. So comparative reasoning translations are, I give multiple translations for each verse. So this way you don't lose anything, any context when you're translating from the original spoken language of Pali into English. So the first line of the Dhammapada sums up everything. And you'll see this repeated in the text. In the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali, the guy who wrote the Yoga Sutras, who spoke the Yoga Sutras, he tries to sum up yoga in one line. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha, they're trying to sum it up in one line. Chapter 1, verse 1. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. Mind is the master of mental and emotional states. If one speaks or acts with an agitated mind, negativity will follow them like the wheel follows the footprints of the ox that pulls the cart. So after you read one of these verses, what you want to do is you want to take it in and you want to embody the essence of the verse. So yes, you want to be able to recall the verse by memory, word for word. Buddha also says that. He who can recall the holy text word for word in order. But also he says you want to embody its essence. So when you read the sutra, you want to take it in and then embody it. The second translation for verse 1. Phenomena are preceded by the heart, created by the heart, manifestations of the heart. If you speak or act with an impure heart, then suffering follows you like the cart follows the heel of the ox that drags the plow. Just meditate on the line for a minute. So what he's saying is, if you're agitated, if you're stressed, if you're worried, if you're doubtful, you're pretty much subconsciously creating a negative reality. So by purifying your heart through practice, through spiritual practice, striving, the ascetic arts, prayer, meditation, fasting, study, by practicing these things, you purify the heart, and by studying the sutras, you gain knowledge and wisdom and insight. And through these things, you can stop your heart from getting agitated and worried and stressed, which in turn will create for you a more positive reality. It also explains what the Buddha is saying by we're creating our own suffering through our own subconscious habits, through lack of knowledge and wisdom. So verse 2. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. Mind is the master of mental and emotional states. If one speaks or acts with a peaceful mind, positivity will follow them like a shadow that never leaves. Meditate on it for a minute. You have to absorb it. Second translation. Phenomena are perceived by the heart, created by the heart, manifestations of the heart. If you speak or act with a tranquil, radiant heart, then happiness follows you like a never-departing shadow. So let's say we fall in love, right? We fall in love with somebody. We're in love with them. They're so great, they're so beautiful, they're so perfect, we value them so much that we're scared of losing them. We're worried about if they do something that might hurt us. So because of that, we get worried. We get stressed. When we get worried and stressed, then we speak things that are negative, that are worried, that are doubtful, things that are unpleasant. And that in turn can ruin or harm the situation. So attachment here becomes very important because we have to control the mind. And when we see something that's beautiful and we love our family members, our daughter, our husband, our lover, our wife, when we love these things, it's very easy to become stressed and worried about them. So in the Buddhism, when we're doing our mindfulness practice, our meditation practice, not only are we meditating on the wisdom so we can embody it, but we're also meditating on keeping a calm, pure heart and a pure, focused mind to keep ourselves from causing our own suffering. Because the goal of nirvana is a state of pure peace, focus, and concentration and love. That's what nirvana is. Line number 3. He insulted me, he hit me, he overpowered me, he took my belongings. Those who dwell on such thoughts cannot appease their hatred. He abused me, he struck me, he defeated me, he robbed me. Those who harbor such thoughts cannot still their hostility. So here, if you pay attention to your thoughts, you might notice that your grudges that you have with people when they surface up, well, this person scammed me, this person hurt me, this person robbed me, this person did that to me. If you have these thoughts, then your mind will never be at peace. If your mind's not at peace, you can't have happiness. So here, when we're purifying the mind, or when we're perfecting virtue, Dhammapada means perfect virtue, we're paying attention to our mind and our thoughts, because each thought is so important. One thought can ruin your day. And it's so easy to let one of these thoughts come up and not guard your mind, and then have your day get thrown off, or have your moon get thrown off, or have your negative emotions start to go. So if you have these thoughts, you have to acknowledge them and then let them go. Forgive what has to be forgiven. You experience your negative emotions, your negative thoughts, but you let go of them. Your thought patterns, your habit patterns, they go on with you for this life into the next. So your habits and your thoughts, they're stuck in your mind. And to change your habits and your thoughts, it's not simple. I've literally been having heart pain and mind pain trying to change my thoughts for these last 3 days. It's not something that's just easy to do. You go, oh, I'm just going to permanently change my thoughts right now and change my whole habits in my life. So it takes a lot of focus, concentration, and discipline in order to actually change your thoughts and change your habits. That's where mindfulness comes into play, because a lot of people were not even conscious of our subconscious thoughts. We're just in, auto drive, where like our thoughts are just bubbling up all the time, we're not paying attention. So when we're doing Anapanasati, mindfulness of breath, mindfulness of senses, when we're doing that, we're paying attention to our thoughts, and you have to notice when your thoughts come up. And if you notice how your negative thoughts destroy your life, then it starts to be a big change. Because in Buddhism, there's a lot about taking responsibility for your actions. And when you see how the negative events in your life are happening because of your negative emotions and your negative thoughts, then it becomes real serious that you're like, wow, I really have to change my thoughts and change my perspective around because it's destroying my life. Number 5. Hatred does not cease by hatred. Hatred ceases through love. This is a universal law. Hostility is not subdued by hostility. Hostility is subdued by compassion. This is an eternal law. So here, I just quoted this on my Facebook the other day because I was having a conversation with somebody about the jhana states, the rapture states, the samadhi states, the higher states of absorption and consciousness in which you're unattached and in states of high bliss and focus in the moment. And he started to get into an argument with me, but there's no argument for hatred against love. Like, you're supposed to put the love before the intelligence and the wisdom. So, if you start arguing with somebody about how, hatred can't be conquered by hatred, it can only be conquered by love, and they start arguing back about it, then all you can do is just, right? Because the emotional factor has to be mastered, and the intellect factor has to be mastered. Number 6, people do not realize that we all must die. But the wise who do relinquish their quarrels. There are those who do not realize that one day we all must die. But those who do let go of their grudges and die in peace. So I got into an argument with my friend, a very good friend, of like 20 years. And I got into an argument with him. And the argument was about 2 words, and the words have definition. And me and my friend we're both writers, and we're both etymologists, and we're both students of the word. We're both scribes. So he says that the Lucifer and Satan are the same thing. I said that they're not. I said Lucifer is a different word than Satan, and he got into an argument with me. Now, I knew at that point, I was like, man, you've been my friend for 20 years. Like, it's not worth our friendship over this argument. Like, I realized at this point, I'm going to die. There's no point in the arguing. But when you know you're right about something, like, it's like hard not to argue with a person when you know that you're right. So here it's like, you say your opinion, but if the person disagrees with you at that point, you just don't try to convince people. Just at that point, you have to back off and let them do their thing. But the Buddha does state there is right and wrong. The Dalai Lama does say, black is black and red is red. If somebody says that red is blue, they're wrong. There's a reason why there are words and there are definitions to words. There's definitely a difference in opinion, and there can be multiple perspectives in which both people are right. So you really have to know, is it a multiple perspective thing where like he's seeing it in a different way that's right and I'm seeing it in a different way that's right, we're both right? Because that happens a lot of times. There's just different definitions and different understandings. But when some of the things that are black and white, like this is the color white, this is the color black, unless the person has that like disease where they're seeing white as red or something like that. So there is definitely the words, but it's not worth it to argue with someone because we're all gonna die, and why argue? Like there's no point in arguing. And it's really self-control comes into play. In one of the Future Sutras, the Buddha says, he who loses mindfulness for one moment, goes into hell. The Buddha says, he who loses Buddha's mindfulness for one moment swallows a hot iron ball. That's how important it is to have the mindfulness. Verse 7. One who focuses his mind on pleasant objects, who has no self-discipline, who is immoderate in his eating, indolent and unenergetic, Mara overcomes him, just as stormy wind uproots a tree. Just like strong winds uproot a weak tree, craving and lust overpower pleasure seekers that have no control over their senses, eat overindulgently, and are lazy and spent. Number 8. One who focuses his mind on the present moment, is aware of both positive and negative, has self-discipline, is moderate in his eating, and is full of faith and energy. Mara does not overcome him, just as wind does not shake a mountain of rock. Second translation. Just like wind cannot break a mountain, craving and lust cannot overpower one who meditates on his faults, has control over his senses, consumes efficiently, and has conviction and vigor. This sutra is so important. I'm going to read the first translation one more time, because I feel intuitively that it needs to be said one more time. One who focuses his mind on the present moment, is aware of both positive and negative, has self-discipline, is moderate in his eating, and is full of faith and energy. Mara does not overcome him, just as wind does not shake a mountain of rock. After you hear the sutra, try to still your mind and concentrate on it and take it into your heart. Try to make the sutra a part of you. If you hear the sutra and go back to your old ways, that's a pitfall to high spiritual development. So as soon as you hear it, you want to hear it, embody it, and then from that point forward, be changed. Verse number 9. One who has not cleansed himself from sin, who lacks temperance and truth, is not worthy of being a spiritual master. He who is not free from corruption, who is established in moral and ethical code, who is not established in moral and ethical code, is undisciplined and dishonest, is not worthy of being a monk. There's a reason why. The defilements, greed, jealousy, lust, some craving and lust, the defilements break peace, and as they break peace, they destroy happiness, and in turn create suffering, unhappiness. When we eliminate the causes of unhappiness, we have nothing but happiness left. One who has cleansed himself from sin is an embodiment of virtue, filled with temperance and truth, is worthy of being a saint. He who is free from corruption, established in proper moral and ethical code, disciplined and honest, is worthy of being a monk. Number 11. Those who mistake untruth for truth and truth for untruth never understand the ultimate truth, because wrong views cause delusion and hinder clarity. Those who confuse the unessential for the unessential. Those who confuse the unessential for the essential and the essential for the unessential have the wrong view and never understand what is essential. Number 12. Those who see truth as truth and untruth for untruth have the right view and are capable of understanding the ultimate nature of reality. Second translation. Those who know the essential for the essential, and the unessential for the unessential, have right view and understand what is essential. Number 13. Just as rain leaks through a badly roofed house, craving and lust penetrate a mind not cultivated in tranquility and insight. 13. Just as rain seeps into a poorly thatched hut, passion permeates an underdeveloped mind. Developing the mind is what we're doing when we're meditating. If we do not develop the mind every day, the mind goes into a state of decline. If it goes into a state of decline, ultimately it leads to suffering and death. Verse 14. Just as rain does not leak through a well-roofed house, craving and lust cannot penetrate a mind cultivated in tranquility and insight. Second verse. Just as rain runs off a well-thatched hut, passion does not permeate a developed mind. Verse 15. He who does evil grieves in this life and in the continuation upon leaving his body. He is tormented when he sees the result of his deeds. He who is selfish grieves now and in the future. He is afflicted from the results of his actions. An evildoer mourns in this world and in the next. He mourns in both. He mourns and suffers when he sees the evil of his own impure work. Verse 16. He who does good rejoices in this life and in the continuation upon leaving the body. He is pleased when he sees the results of his deeds. He who is virtuous rejoices now and in the future. He is happy with the results of his actions. Third translation. A doer of good delights in this world and in the next. He delights in both. He delights and rejoices when he sees the good of his own pure work. Verse 17. He who does evil suffers in this life and in the continuation upon leaving his body. He suffers when he thinks, the evil I have done. He suffers even more when he is reborn in the realms of hell. Second translation. He who is non-virtuous repents now and in the future. He is unhappy with the results of his actions. Third translation. He who is selfish is tormented now and in the future. He is tormented when he thinks the wrong things I have done. He is tormented further during lower realm time loops. So when we do an evil action that causes us suffering in our lives, unhappiness in others, it's caused because of non-virtue, which stems from selfishness, which stems from attachment. So we like what's good, we don't like what's bad. We like pleasure and we don't like pain. So we're always looking for pleasure and we're trying to avoid pain. And because of these two things, we take selfish actions which cause ourselves pain. When you get to this level of understanding, the mindfulness practice becomes the most important thing. Because you're transcending dualistic reality. The jhana states, the samadhi states, the states of rapture, the higher states of consciousness. Verse 18. He who does good is joyful in this life and in the continuation upon leaving the body. He delights when he thinks, the good I have done. He delights even more when he is reborn in the blissful heavenly realms. Verse 18. He who is virtuous is rewarded now and in the future. He is happy when he thinks, the meritorious things I have done. He rejoices in the higher realms. Verse 19. Those who study the sacred text, but do not act in accordance with them, are like a cowherder who focuses on the cows of others. They do not receive the benefits of the holy life. This is the second translation for this verse. I give the multiple translations for each verse. And if you have any comments or questions about the verse, please put them in the comments below. Second translation, verse 19. He who knows the laws but does not follow them is as negligent as a rancher paying attention to everyone else's cattle. He does not partake in the blessings of meditative life. Verse 20. Those who study the sacred text act in accordance with them, purifying themselves from lust, hatred, and delusion, will have true wisdom and emancipated mind. No longer clinging to this world, they do receive the benefits of the holy life. He who knows the laws and follows them, eradicating greed, aversion, and ignorance, possesses true knowledge and peace of mind. Not grasping onto anything, he partakes in the blessing of meditative life. So here, the Buddha is explaining to us how important the study of the text is, and that's why I do this study. I read the text, I translated them, and I made my own translations, but continued study of them is essential until you reach the ultimate goal, permanent nirvana. But when you fall back into the realms of suffering, you go through intense emotional and mental suffering, you realize it, and you don't want to go through that again. So that's verse 20, guys. I'm going to put my translation in the verse below. My translation is available for sale on Amazon. I'm going to put the link below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. This is going to be an ongoing Dhammapada study. So please join me for the study and make sure to question and comment if you have any questions or any input. Input being like something positive to reflect on the sutras. I'd like to add this to the group. I'd like to add this information to the group. This is what I have to offer. I really like that. I like when people can add things with different perspectives or higher understandings to help add to the knowledge. And also, the comments, if you have any questions while it's going, please let me know. Thanks so much for watching, guys. God bless.